Grandpa's feeling a little frisky today.
That's Kid Rock in an Instagram post from earlier this year, voicing his displeasure over Bud Light's brief partnership with transgender social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney. He proceeded to shoot cases of the beer while giving the finger to the brand in the post. The collaboration resulted in major backlash against Bud Light, including calls to boycott, a drop in sales, and lots of reaction. And
I think it's funny because Bud Light has been supporting LGBT organizations for years.
It's clear that that level of violence and vitriol against transgender Americans has to stop.
Anheuser-Busch issued a statement saying it never intended to divide people. The company has since distanced itself from the influencer and released a new ad, which you're seeing on your screen right now, called The Shared Spirit. But the relationship between beer and politics is nothing new. It's been brewing for decades, and recent events could change how companies position their brands going forward. Meg Hilling explains.
Whether you like it or not, when it comes to your beer, politics come with the pour.
Politics is mixed in with the beer. There's no way to get it separated.
That's beer historian and writer Brian Alberts, who's a contributor to the podcast Good Beer Huntings and other media platforms. And what he's saying is not an understatement. It's a relationship that quite literally has been brewing for centuries. So how exactly did the two become so intertwined? Well, let's back up a bit.
Beer was considered a staple, in the earliest days of colonialization in North America. One of the very first industries that colonial Massachusetts tried to encourage was a local brewing industry.
As those taverns sprung to life along the East Coast, they quickly became gathering grounds for community conversations, a lot of which had to do with English rule, sparking political debate and calls for independence. During this time, beer was available, but historians say it wasn't exactly everyone's choice of drink, often playing third fiddle to drinks like rum and whiskey. However, some founding fathers took a liking to it.
George Washington was a fan of porter. I don't think he brewed it himself, but he was a fan of getting it imported, which was a common practice at the time.
But with that rise in popularity came social and political pushback from the Temperance Movement and Prohibition, which saw alcohol as a threat to the moral fabric of the nation. And that wasn't the only concern politicians had about alcohol consumption.
But that entire time, beer is wrapped up in all these political shifts in the United States. It's questions of whether or not immigrants deserve full citizenship, questions of who's allowed to drink.
In 1933, Congress adopted the 21st Amendment, repealing prohibition, which had prevented the manufacturing, sale, and transportation of alcohol in the U.S. for over a decade. With the taps back on, the beer industry began taking on a more prominent role in American culture. Breweries began to pop up across the country, and the beverage itself became closely associated with America's favorite pastime.
There's nothing more American than baseball and apple pie, but you throw beer into that because beer has been present in all of those baseball stadiums since pretty much the beginning.
Nowadays, while not every politician chooses to drink alcohol, it's not uncommon for lawmakers, including presidents, to be pictured having a pint, be it with colleagues and leaders from other countries, while catching up or working on negotiations. In 2011, former President Barack Obama became the first president to have beer brewed at the White House and was known for hosting beer summits as a way to bring folks together. Beer has even become a tool used by political candidates during election cycles as a way to raise their likability among voters by cracking a cold one with them to talk life and politics.
That whole narrative, the idea that, we want a presidential candidate that we could have a beer with, that's something that was activated. I want to say it was first really used during the George W. Bush campaign. I don't know if it was his campaign that put it together, but that was something that came up in fairly recent, political history, and it's become this kind of refrain that's meant to symbolize, accessibility in politics.
Like many industries in the U.S., beer companies have been known to throw support behind political candidates and legislation with campaign donations, one of the largest donors being Anheuser-Busch. There have even been studies on what your choice of beer says about your political affiliation. For example, Bloomberg points to a 2019 study by National Media, a political ad buying firm, which notes that Democrats appear to have a taste for Guinness, Corona, Modelo, Miller High Life, and Heineken, whereas Republicans seem to gravitate towards Samuel Adams, Busch Light, Michelob Ultra, Yuengling, and Bud Light. On one end of the spectrum, some beer drinkers began boycotting Bud Light as a showcase of resistance versus association with the transgender community. On the other end of the spectrum, some Chicago gay bars have stopped selling the beer and other Anheuser-Busch products for not standing by its partnership with Mulvaney. Amid a sales slump and boycott calls, Anheuser-Busch placed 2 executives on leave and reportedly cut ties with a third-party agency responsible for the Instagram post that launched the debate to begin with. As the company seeks to distance itself from the matter, it raises questions about how politics could impact future marketing campaigns for beer brands going forward. So the next time you're sipping on some suds, beer experts would like you to remember.
Beer has been legal and illegal. It's been moral and immoral. It's been healthy. It's been sinful poison. We've done a very good job using beer to navigate the rest of society. It flows with us.
Meg Hilling, Scripps News, Chicago.